Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. You are listening to ProjectME, the podcast with Tiffany Carter, and today I have on a guest that I'm so excited about. I go back, way back with this guy to my college days, and he's really made an incredible life for himself that is filled with so much inspiration for me, and I know you guys will love to hear his story. We have on Dave Lagana. He's the vice president of Billy Corgan's production company, Lightning One. If you're not familiar with Billy Corgan, maybe you're too young or you've been living under a rock. He's the frontman and lead singer of the famous band, the Smashing Pumpkins. Hey, Dave, I'm so happy.
Hello, friend. Longtime friend.
Yeah, we go way back, you guys, too. We both went to Emerson College in Boston, so I had to do a shout out. And, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to have Dave on is he's one of those people, and you're going to get like maybe moderately embarrassed right now, but he's one of those people who truly never gave up with what he was passionate about. Even when he wasn't making much money, he still stuck with it. He stuck with it long after anyone I know would have stuck with it. And it's now finally paid off. And that's why I wanted you guys to hear the story, is like he really didn't like compromise what you love to do. I mean, you didn't sell out, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
I sold out way earlier than I should have, but then figured out that working for the man wasn't for me. So you're a big part of it, because I'm trying to think what year we worked together recently. It was 2011, right? We worked on something in 2011. You know, I did not make a lot of money that year as far as like what was there, but I also got out of $7,000 of debt, making 1/10 of what I made to get in that $7,000 of debt. So for me, the biggest thing that I've ever done was realize that I have to figure out what I want before I could ever work for anybody to give them what they want.
Interesting.
My inspirational line.
Well,
because people, you work a lot of jobs and they tell you what to do. You're not sure why you're doing it. You do it, you get no fulfillment, and you've taken 9 to 12 to 17 to 38 to 75 hours doing it. And you're like, why did I do this? For a paycheck, which is great, but you know, money's not everything.
So take people back a little bit, and Dave's someone who's really humble. One of the many things I love about him. But take people back. I mean, you had a huge spike in your career early on, and then the shit hit the fan. So take people back. Take people back so they know some of this journey, right, of how this shit can happen.
You were the same class as me, right? Or were you a year behind me? So I graduated in 97. Did you graduate in 97 or 98?
99. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're the younger woman. So I graduated college in 1997, pre sort of the internet age. It's kind of weird for anybody to realize that, like, oh, wait, you just didn't DM somebody? Like in 1997, I moved to Hollywood with about $2,000. And no connections. I had one connection. I had done an internship at Young and the Restless and in the NBC primetime series department, but neither of them got me very far as jobs. So I just started working. I went to work for a kid's talent agent. We cast a kid in the Barney movie. So I went to the Barney premiere at 21 years old. Hated that job. Was making $223 a week post taxes. This is 1997. Then I worked in a Laserdisc company. Remember Laserdiscs? Or like pre-DVDs. And then I worked for a literary agent, and he represented all the Simpsons writers, and I always wanted to be a writer. And so I ended up interviewing for 19 jobs in a row that I did not get. Literally, I mentally, I don't think I would have hired me. I went in not being confident for what I wanted. And so on the 20th interview, it was a person I had done some business with, and she was super cool. And she's like, listen, I'm starting up this production company with Wolfgang Peterson, who directed Das Boot and The Perfect Storm. And she's like, just come over, have some fun, but whatever. So I literally went to work for her for 6 weeks. And this woman came as a temp, and she's like, oh, you want to be a writer? My friend works on the TV show Friends, and they just fired 2 writer's assistants. They need a writer's assistant. How fast can you type? I said, how fast do I need to type? And they said 100 words a minute. I said, no problem. I can do that. I was typing about 60 words a minute. So I spent 3 days taking typing programs, and I was clocked in at 102 words a minute and was hired on the spot, having to completely ditch the woman who took a flyer on me. She still never talked to me after that, but she understood. And that was my big break, came not from talent, but being able to do what was necessary for the job. And I was 24. I think it was literally when you graduated. It was 99, 2000. I got a script at 24 years old. I still get checks to this day. A little green envelope shows up my house every $500 to $1,000. And it was the biggest break, and I was not ready for it. I did not understand the culture and ancillary duties that came with the job. I did not make the best of impressions on the showrunner, meaning that he wanted someone to hang out with more than to do the job. And I was not asked back for a second season. And then I found another showrunner who fit my personality, a guy that literally took everything on him and worked harder than anybody. So his name is Vic Levin, who did Mad About You. He got me ready to understand everything else. And then I found that TV culture was changing, and there used to be like 37 sitcoms on broadcast television, and within 3 years it went from 37 to 8. So all those jobs disappeared, and much to Tiffany's chagrin, as we were just talking about pro wrestling, a job opportunity came up with the WWE in 2002, and I took it because it was a 52-week-a-year paycheck job. I moved from LA to Connecticut, and I worked for 6 years for the crazy billionaire Vince McMahon and flew in his private jet, and got to meet all my heroes, work with all my heroes, but also see a lot of not great stuff personally. You know, it was sort of a dark era in that company. Wrestlers were dying. A wrestler killed his family. You know, like all people I was personal friends with. So, you know, that ended, and I moved back to LA in 2008. I think that's when you and I reconnected, and I ended up deciding, like, I took a 85% pay cut to live back in Los Angeles and pick jobs that I wanted to do. And I worked for you on a fun project and just did stuff I liked, and I didn't work as hard. And, you know, I felt a lot better and decided to just kind of just do what I wanted to do. And, you know, in 2011, while I was working with you, I started a podcast before everybody had a podcast. And within 6 weeks, I was number 3 on sports, top 3 sports podcasts in the world, including a friend at ESPN who reached out going, how are you gimmicking your numbers to be high? It's like, I'm not. I just simply found a story. I was telling a story that people hadn't heard before. Nobody had heard sort of the behind the scenes aspect of my job, because we were faceless, and social media allowed it to kind of come to the forefront. And I leveraged that into a job in Nashville. I moved to Nashville in 2011 while still working with you. We've still worked together on a project at that point. And, you know, I was able to kind of reboot my life here and spent 5 years. And that's where Billy and I reconnected at the company that I worked for. And it's matter of public record. He invested $1.8 million in the company I was working for. The woman who ran the company tried to defraud him. He ended up suing to get his money back, and we both walked out of the company separate days, 2 days after each other, to start the company we're doing now. So it's, you know, and I walked away from another 6-figure job and with no guarantee of money. And Billy said, listen, I don't know when this will start. And I said, no problem. And we went on the road. About a month later, we did 30 documentaries in 30 days that I shot, edited, produced with him. We got in an RV, and we're just 2 dudes driving around the country using social media. And, you know, it's one of my favorite trips I ever took. No, I didn't even know what I was going to make. I didn't care. So
why didn't you care? I just want to kind of stop you there. That's most people at that point, that money mindset would be messing with their brain so much. I mean, you'd already had been through it once before. You already were making at a high profile job, 6 figures with lots and lots and lots of perks to, like you said, basically an 85% pay cut. So you've done it before. Now this was happening again. Like, it didn't mess with your head at all?
No, I had the job had always been, I was there a year before the bottom was about to fall out every time. And I could write a book on the ridiculousness of that company, which has given me the lessons in running my company that I'm running now. Is I bootstrap everything. I don't have an assistant. I book all of our travel. Now, obviously, as the company scales, we're talking to major conglomerates to put a show on for them. They're like, how are you going to do? I said, obviously, once we have a path, we're going to do it. But there's no need to have the dog and pony show because we live in a DIY culture. You're able now to do a podcast, broadcast it all over the world without having a network behind you with everything. And you have the same ability to reach the same amount of people with the internet that exists. So for me, I saw the opportunity in 2011. And if I would have stuck with that, I probably could have been bought out by a conglomerate 3 years later and made a large amount of money from my podcast. But because I was so early. And so for us now, YouTube is such a unique environment that it's all amateurs. There's no professionals. I mean, there are professionals, but they're putting professional content. Nobody's creating for the space. They're creating content for television. They're putting on YouTube, but like creating inside that space and living inside that culture is really one of the most interesting things. We took a YouTube channel that did not exist a year ago, and it just crossed 46,000 subscribers with content that literally we just produced ourselves, and it's got the attention of a bunch of wrestlers, and we're on a show that's doing 10,000 tickets in 30 minutes this coming week. And, it's humbling because it's all based upon the work and not really as much anything else.
So what would you say? I mean, you clearly have like some secret sauce with this YouTube channel that is getting the subscribers, and not just subscribers. It's translating and transitioning into actual ticket sales. So what do you think it is? Is it something unique about your content, or is it the consistency of content?
We're not selling them anything. Right now, everybody's selling everybody everything all the time. There's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk who in 2016, when Billy and I sort of were trying to figure out what we were going to do, I'd forgotten I had bought his first book in 2009, and everybody sort of knows the name Gary V now. But it was in 2013, he had a New York Times article where he used to tweet, "What can I do for you?" And if somebody said, "I want a hamburger," he'd order them a hamburger on Twitter and send it to their house. And it blew my mind in understanding that, think about every day now, and it's so much worse. Go through your social media feed. Somebody's trying to sell you something at all times, every minute of every day. And if they're not looking for money, they're looking for your time, attention, whatever. And so our strategy was, here's all this content for free that we put on for you, for your enjoyment. And we literally didn't sell one t-shirt until 7 months into our run. And everybody's always selling all the time. That it's the equivalent of a girl at a bar and a guy comes up and hits on, like, you have to understand the psychology of humans to understand how they want to feel comfortable in being around you. And while I may fail in that category in my personal life at times, I understand the understanding of consumers of what they want, because we're all consuming and doing content. And let the consumer decide. They will tell you. The market will decide if it's good or not. And I have nothing to lose at this point. I really don't. You know what I mean? Like, I have enough money to do whatever I want, but I also know I could go even smaller. I could live I did. Do you remember where I lived in California? I lived in the back of a woman's house.
Yep, I do remember.
And it was cheaper than buying. I could have bought a house, but then I knew I would have to work a real job and do work for somebody else again, which I didn't want to do. And I can't talk about Billy enough because he gives me such freedom. Yeah, I have a gold card. I understand everything I buy on that has to be for the company. There is not one wasted cent on there. And for me, that's important because he trusts me enough to run his business. I mean, he's literally on tour. He did $1.2 million at the Garden. in Madison
Wow.
Square Garden. He sold out Madison Square Garden without I mean, he's not that they're doing really great business, and they're not Taylor Swift, meaning they're not on the Today Show. He wanted to build it on the back of their fans. And so if you're a fan of Billy's and you walk in that arena and you realize it's not on every street corner, every newspaper, you go, God, I'm early, and look at all these people that I'm with, as opposed to, these people that get a lot of publicity and they burn out. The show he's doing, it's 3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours.
That's long.
All hits. It's long, but he didn't just rest on the laurels of his catalog. He spent $300,000 on content for the screens to play behind them, because when you go to a concert, no matter where you sit, you can't really see, it's hard to see. So he's created this visual event to go with the music, and they sound amazing. And so he's created this thing. So if you walk out of that show, you want to see the next one, as opposed to, which sometimes when a band tours, like I saw Billy Joel in 1999, he played a whole new album, and Piano Man was the last song he played. I had to wait 2 hours for Piano Man. He starts with Disarm, which is like his biggest song. And like he just knocks you out with all this stuff. And so giving out more than you pay for sometimes is a strategy, and the money will come, but people's time is worth more than their money. So
how do you wrap your head around that? Because that's why I also think everyone's selling, because I can even hear my own money noise saying, okay, like I get it, like give value, give genuine, authentic value, give value, give value, and know it will come. But now let's say we're on, right, month 8, month 9 of someone giving great free content, free tips, being of service, and there's still no money. I mean, you've got to like be able to bring in some cash at some point.
Yeah, and I think that's a struggle a lot of people have. And there's so many business coaches that sound like a money grab, and there's so much free ways to learn stuff. So for example, when I was getting into video, even when I worked for you, my video game was nowhere near what it is now, but my fundamentals of storytelling were exactly the same. So I went and dove into YouTube because there's so much great content to learn from. So what you have to understand is that's why when you have to look at what you make and what you put into it. So I don't buy a lot of expensive stuff. I buy some toys, but like I don't go out and buy an expensive watch. If you want it, great, but what do you want it for? And I think that's where you have to start with your business. What do you want to get out of it? And if you have a great product, great, but you have to understand. And by the way, yes, I have a guy that has a lot of money backing my business, but we've spent $75,000 this year total and to get all of this content done. Some people spend that on catering for a movie. You know what I mean? Like for 2 hours of entertainment. I'd have to look at my YouTube. And you have to decide what you want to put into it, what you want to get out of it, and your life. Okay, you can't if you're doing a startup, you have to decide how you want to control that money, and the money will come. And trust me, I understand every business is different, but you have to start with a philosophy of you have to understand that you have to be patient, because nothing comes overnight. There are no overnight successes. I am 40-something years old, and this is the most success I've ever had. And by the way, we're still in the red. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say, you're saying that, but I already know from the few numbers you gave me, you guys are in the red.
Yeah, but we bought this brand for, I'll give you the equivalent. So WWE stock a year ago was at $26. Their stock is at $82 today. The company went from $3 billion to, I think it's worth $9 billion.
Wow.
We paid $200,000 for this brand. We are not the WWE, but the money comes in building a brand that 20 years from now goes from $200,000 to be worth even $100 million. So Billy that's why we're very meticulous in the money we spent. How we spend it. So yeah, I was given a number that I can lose every year. I haven't even come close to touching it because we have gotten all this attention for 1/5 of the number that he gave me. So it's all smart spends. It's all brand building. I'm not going to take you, Tiffany, out to dinner on the company because it's not going to help build my brand unless we're doing some sort of business. So like that's where a lot of people hurt the companies they work for. They use the money for the companies they work for their own pleasure, which is fine. But you then wonder when the company goes out of business because you didn't care because it's not your money. So for us, the long-term vision of what we're looking to do, everything is going into brand building. So I'm paying for content out of our pocket for people that I have no contract with, but they're also giving me their attention and their audience to build my brand. And it's so backwards where somebody's like, no, you have to monetize everything. You can't. And in this world, it's if you can be lean. Now I understand, but the advantage of being small and lean like this is I can make deals like that. A larger company that has a set mouths to feed can't.
Right.
And so that's where the advantage of a YouTube entrepreneur, you can do trades. You know what I mean? Like the companies that we're producing content for, they're spending X number of dollars to produce all this television. I go in with my guys, I get the content for free, basically the production of the content for free, and it goes on my YouTube and I build my channel and my attention through their world, and they're happy because they're getting high quality content through me and Billy. So that's what I mean.
They aren't paying you for creating the content for their YouTube channel, but you're getting access to their audience.
Production. I'm getting their audience, their production, their staff, and I'm bringing them the skills I have, the talent I have. I have one talent under contract. I have basically the best way to describe for non-wrestling fans of what we have. Imagine the Oscars, but there's only one Oscar, and we have the most important Oscar in our genre. This title goes all the way back to 1948. The greatest names in wrestling have held this title, and it's a very exclusive list. It's the equivalent of having a Michelin 5-star. Okay. So now, this wrestler by the name of Cody Rhodes, his father held this title in the 70s and 80s, and he is one of the largest names in the history of the business. He is now wrestling for the title that his father had in the 70s and 80s. Everyone can resonate with that story, and I'm documenting that story. By the way, I had a personal relationship with this gentleman, so even that story connects people who know my story, know his son's story, and the guy that he's wrestling for the title has his own story that collides with the same thing. You can't buy that story. There's no number you can put on it. So all these pieces have come together, and we're building a brand and not really asking for fans other than to buy the event to see this match. But I'm convincing them one video at a time to buy this one match, as opposed to buy this video, buy this video, buy this video, then buy this other video. That's the difference of this world we live in now.
So are you guys selling a decent amount of tickets to the events as a result of all this content building and brand building?
We are building a lot of energy. So like this event that we're doing, the tickets sold out in 30 minutes without even our involvement. So now we see this as an opportunity to brand build even further. So our title is going to appear in front of 10,000 fans in Chicago at the Sears Center out in, I think it's Hoffman Estates, Chicago. And fans from all over the world are flying to this event. It is a showcase event. People should pay to be on this event. So the fact that we're on it in any form or fashion is spectacular for us. And so that's when an opportunity comes. Now we could have said, well, we need $10,000 for this. You know what I mean? Money wasn't even the first discussion. We looked at the opportunity and said, this is good for us and our brand. And the media dollar value of everything we're getting out of this, there isn't a way to truly calculate it. And it just, that's where you have to make the smart choices. And that's every day you have to go, okay, is this worth it? Am I going to get it? And you have to be okay with that decision and commit to it. Because if you're worrying, oh God, how am I going to make the mortgage? You made that mistake 2 or 3 years ago when you decided to buy the house you couldn't afford.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and you have to evaluate your money decisions every day. Is this meal out going to be worth it? What am I getting out of it? And it's every dollar decision, just like I'm sure you do with every business decision you make. You can't live. The mistakes you make today will haunt you 5 years from now.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
So,
I'm just so fascinated you're playing the long game, and I'm a big believer in the long game. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur 10 years, and the long game is sustainable. And then the long run, so to speak, you end up making more. But the catch is, as I like to always share with my listeners, like, yeah, here's the catch. it's uncomfortable as fuck a lot of times when you are giving, spending, and you aren't yet getting a return to where you're like, okay, I'm in the money now. Would you agree with that?
Well, and yes, because some people, they like the comfortable, they like the check showing up every 2 weeks, but then they hate their boss. Well, okay, decide. Well, then look at everything you have. And I'm trying to think, I just had an example for you. The 2011, when I had my most success digitally, I didn't make a lot of money, but I put a lot of time and effort to build something that I only did for 8 months, and still 8 years later, people ask me about it to this day. They ask about that podcast you did. Are you going to bring it back? I said, no, it's not a dead market. It's an oversaturated market. I couldn't make the same impact. The series I'm producing now for YouTube, there's nothing like it in the genre. Nothing. Nobody's doing the effort. And by the way, it's in the red. But the attention I'm getting out of it, I took time out of my day to do this with you, but like literally it consumes every minute of every day that I have. I flew to Vancouver on 2 hours notice to shoot something with Stephen Amell of the show Arrow and the guy that's in our match, because I knew that story would be big, and having a Hollywood A-list star who's, by the way, on this show we're doing, it makes our content valuable. And Billy goes, okay, he doesn't even need to approve it. He knows I'm going to make the right choice. You know, a last minute trip to Vancouver is not really a kind of a off the cuff thing, but I made the right decision. I wasn't going to go sit and drink Mai Tais by the pool in Vancouver, which would be a terrible vacation. But I understand that getting those moments and going for it work. I've been on the road since July 1st. I think I've been home 7 days.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? I knew that you would. I mean, your personality is you tell it like it is, whether someone wants to hear it or not. And oftentimes people don't want to hear it. But what I love about you is that is the real life. I mean, that is what it can take. Are there other ways to do things? Sure, there's other ways to do things. But yeah, that is what it takes. I mean, you really are putting in like the definition of sweat equity.
Well, and your time, like when you and I worked together, I think we got together once in the 2 years we did that project. You don't have to be in the same. If you're not happy with the money you're making, move to Mississippi. You're very expensive. I'm not saying I'm saying you're in a general sense. Your $800,000 home, by the way, you can get a nice $83,000 home in Mississippi and run the same business and travel to where you need to be. You know, that's why I don't live in LA anymore. And, you know, Nashville, my house is 70% cheaper in Nashville for the same home that I'd have in LA. And I can fly to LA 3 times a year and just go, oh, you don't have to be somewhere all the time. The internet has changed that part of it. You know, Billy and I don't live in the same place. I don't see him very often. I talk to him every day. But you don't have to live, like the fact that you and I could do this and put it up as a video right now if we wanted to it's so game changing, and people yet are still buying ads on television and buying magazine ads to do business when literally I answer every direct message I get on my Twitter from fans or people that ask questions, and you're like, well, why is your time worth it? Because I know that person that appreciates it will maybe buy something of mine down the road, and if not, I'm doing the right thing for somebody. And for many years, I have not done that. And because I was selfish about what am I getting out of it. And I don't need to get anything anymore. I won.
Wow. You and I always seem to be like in alignment at different like stages in our lives. And that's why like I created my second company, ProjectME. It's for me to give back. It's for me to be of service first. Am I a businesswoman? Is this a nonprofit? No, it's not a nonprofit. It's a for-profit, but it is for me to be of service first and profit second. And I've never, I mean, my primary company is what funds this company, right? Just like you have Billy funding this venture.
The Pumpkins, he walked off the stage at Madison Square Garden. He hadn't played it since 1997. And he goes, basically, he knew he did 1.2 million, but what I think jazzed him up, he did perhaps the best performance of the tour at that point. And he knew that if he does that, the money will be there to fund it. He loves the Pumpkins, but he has so much other stuff he wants to do, so he knows that funds it. And I take that very seriously. Like, he's like, can you come to Arizona with me and shoot behind the scenes? Because what I shoot for him would cost him $50,000 in staffing fees.
Yep.
And I'm already on salary, and I can manage my business while doing that. So I'm literally, all of his people look at me like, why are you here? But he trusts me, and he knows I'm not going to put a piece of video out that isn't on brand and what he wants, because I protect him. So like he funds this, and I take that very seriously. And everybody wants his money.
Of course.
And they don't understand and because to this day, I had somebody email me who hadn't followed our content in a year. It's like, well, I saw you're doing this show. Here's my portfolio. Get back to me. I won't wait really long for you to get back to me. I said, okay, cool. I won't be getting back to you. You keep waiting or not waiting. And because they don't understand the opportunity and the fact that I can get anybody on the phone with his name alone, just from the fact that people love his music, and he's very much an outlier. We call it Rebel Force. He's built this whole business without kissing the ass of the machine. And it's kind of in line with everything we're doing. And, life will change a lot of stuff you're doing, but it doesn't matter if you're on point with your message. And it's been such an experience. And the fact that literally I decided to go to Vancouver on, somebody's like, hey, we're doing this. I'll be there. It wasn't even had to think about it. Didn't have to ask him, because he trusts it, and I know it's the right thing. And you just have to do that sometimes. And by the way, I'd get in a car and drive 8 hours tomorrow if I knew it was going to help something, because I'll look at if I could have drove to Vancouver, I would have, but it just cost and time effective. It wasn't there. But I've driven 8 hours to New Orleans because it was $1,000 cheaper for the company. Okay, I can manage.
At what point does Billy say, and if you can't share this, I understand, but I'm sure he has discussions and has done like an overall vision of the company. At what point does he see you guys at least breaking even? Is it, 2 years in?
That's never discussed, because he understands. So for example, the tour that he's doing funds the Pumpkins for, their guarantee on that tour is millions upon millions of dollars from Live Nation. Right. And they've overexceeded all of it. So he understands that you can't tour 365 days a year. So you build the business to the point where if I get a call from a Comcast to do a television show, it's all based upon the long game we're playing now, instead of me calling Comcast trying to get them to pay us now. Like, we turned down $20 million in financing a year ago and decided to go this path of self-building, when the $20 million would have helped us build. But when you give up half of your company, then you have to answer to somebody else's money. And I think people don't understand that. Once you take somebody's money, you're their prostitute.
Oh, yeah.
So
even if they call themselves an angel investor, you guys, I call an angel investors like a devil on your shoulder, is what I say. Of course.
Because once you take somebody else's money, your vision gets corrupted. And that's what he did. He gave $1.8 million with no guarantee to a wretched, wretched woman who pitted people against each other. And by the way, her game ended up, she took a company that at one point we were getting $20 million a year from a network. Her cash out was $1 million. She played the game wrong. Wow. And, that was her choices. And I don't know what I would have done in that position. That's her business. But that's why every decision we make here is to build to 20 years from now and whatever the brand will be worth. And we have no number. That he just knows what we can lose every year. But is every dollar that goes towards the brand, meaning that title and the shield, so to speak, it's dollar towards that. And it's all, and there's no stupid decisions. If somebody wants $500,000, I'm not going to pay them that unless I know I'm going to make 3 times that off of what they're doing. So, I
mean, this is such a different way of doing business. And I mean, and most of my listeners are familiar with Gary Vee, not the Gary Vee that you knew back in the day, but the Gary Vee, today.
The more recent one.
Right. But I mean, he's the same Gary Vee, I imagine. But, it's like, this is a method that he preaches. It's like give. And I hear a lot of people, whether it's people that that I've worked with, some high level coaches out there that I've worked with. It's such a hard concept to grasp. It's like, well, they must be getting funded somehow. Like, how could you possibly afford to keep giving and not get anything back? Isn't that a recipe for like going out of business?
But that's what I mean is they make bad decisions before they ever ask somebody for money. They this is a bad example, but there was a mixed martial arts company in 2008 that was trying to compete with UFC, and they got an office on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. The office was $100,000 a year rent, or maybe it was a month. It was something ridiculous, and you're like, because they wanted to show off that they were a big company, that people came in. Like the company we worked for, we were in the downtown part of Nashville, and the rent kept going up and up. But like nobody came. Like why? Like why do you have an office if nobody's going to show up? Like what? So like that's where like businesses like WeWork have come up, and I see more business done in Panera's and Starbucks now, and it's not a dirty thing. It's these people that put up these false fronts, and media is doing it too. They've just been smart enough to start buying up internet properties. Why? Amazon bought Whole Foods. An internet company bought a brick and mortar, and nobody really understood why that's important. Because I believe that now, like I just saw that Amazon is going to buy Landmark theaters, because physical goods will never go away, and physical places will never go away, because eventually you get tired of looking at your wife or husband and want to get out of the house. That's not going to change. People still want to go do stuff. But the ability to get things to you faster, it's your time, and that's, I think, what's important to people is how you manage their time. And that comes down to money and all that stuff.
What do you have to say about, I know you get, a ton of people DMing you, you have people commenting on all your amazing content you guys put out there. Your fan base that you have built up, they actually do want to buy shit from you guys. I mean, you're at a point where it's not being even self-serving. Like they actually would love to buy what you're selling. Yeah. So and why aren't you selling?
Like, we made a coordinated effort. We're going to do our first. We started running the brand a year ago in October. We decided to do our first show now, almost a year to the point. So now we'll do 1,000 people in Nashville. So if people want to travel, like I've already had people, because we haven't announced when tickets are going to sell. Like I want to come, like I had a guy buy a plane ticket this morning as soon as we announced it. Like that is completely humbling that we just announced, and the dude bought a plane ticket before he could even buy tickets. And that actually happened on the Chicago show. People bought plane tickets and didn't get actual physical tickets to the event. And like it's crazy when people are that committed that they spend their money. And that's, to me, is when we do stuff like that. T-shirts. I'm hoping people buy this event on pay-per-view that we're doing next week. But again, your time. I'd rather spend time with you and want to spend time with me than me to give you money to spend. Like there's a thing to it. Like when you're paying someone for their time, there's a lot bigger expectation than when you're when you hard sell. We're going to go out and we're going to do this. When you put a lot of expectation and a lot of money into it, there's an expectation of return, as opposed to let's go hang out is a completely different level of expectation. And that's what people have to understand is when you ask people for money, they put a much higher sense on what you're giving them.
And you better make sure you're ready to deliver it, is what you're saying.
Yes. Because think about whenever you buyer's remorse, think about how often you have buyer's remorse and what that feels like.
It's never for something cheap, by the way. It's always for something that, is a high ticket.
Why do you think cheap stuff sells so well? Because there's not as much. Why do you think the fact that people still to this day, that coffee has gone from being a nickel and 25-cent item to a $4 item, cup of coffee that used to cost a quarter and probably is at this point still costs exactly the same to make, because people understand the value of what Starbucks sells you. So they're not selling anything different. It's the same company. But why do you spend free for it?
I'm so fascinated by how this business strategy is. It is so different. And I will say, though, and I know you don't have like that much free time, but when you're sitting in the airport or whatever and you're scrolling the gram or whatnot, I know you're seeing this whole thing of people. I think some of it's coming off of like Gary Vee's popularity, and it's like, oh, we're giving high value, but there's still an undertone in all that content of, but buy this, but buy this, but buy this, but buy this. Do you see that?
Yeah, because you have to understand these businesses are all like, before she died, Kate Spade sold her company. Why did she sell her company? Because people were making T-shirts and designer items and selling them completely differently. How a Kate Spade built her business. How you build a business in 2018 is far different than how you would have built it 10 years ago. The problem is these businesses existed 10 years ago, are still working upon the principles, and the people running them weren't smart enough to understand that this universe was changing, that they didn't adapt their thing. So now as a startup, if I'm shooting, editing, and producing everything myself, I don't have to worry about somebody not caring as much as me to run it. And the people that I hire to work for me when I do stuff, they better work as hard as me, because nobody's going to work as hard as you for your company as the people you hire. And I think too many bosses go, you need to work harder, but then they look at you flying in first class. I'll give you an example. So when our company was cratering and she was literally taking money from everybody, to save a TV deal, they flew first class to India.
Wow.
You know
that was probably like 10 grand a ticket or something insane.
No, it was 10 grand difference from the coach fare.
Mm-hmm.
And this person was having Billy and other people put money in to pay people's salaries, and they spent 10 grand on the company to fly to India to try and save a deal, which, by the way, yes, if you have to go, you go, you know what? Maybe we'll fly coach. But that's the mentality of some people. And then they wonder why people are upset with them. You spent I love first class. Remember when I used to get the one-way upgrades? I think you used a couple of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's
probably since I'm known as a mileage whore. I probably did. Yes.
By the way, this year I've already crossed Platinum Pro. I'm gonna cross Exec Platinum.
I love that. That gets me all excited.
I know. So, but I did it I've never bought a first class ticket in my life. You get the first class based upon the work you put in for them, but it's a luxury. And when your company doesn't have a luxury to give, you have to, especially when it's the problem is a lot of people, it's not their money and they don't look at it that way. Even when it's not your money, you have to look at it that way and what's best for the company. And that's a hard thing to sell in 2018 when everybody can be independent. So you have to sell that vision to yourself before you can actually ask anybody ever to do it for you.
I want to go back briefly to when you said how, there is no such thing as an overnight success and it takes time. There are so many of my listeners and other people who, want to have their own business or take what they're passionate about into a business. Maybe they have a side hustle or they're just starting. Maybe they're even on year 2 of having their business and they're not making shit and they are beating themselves up. They can't figure out why. They're working 12, 14 hours a day and still they're making, if nothing or barely anything, and they're thinking they're doing something wrong. Are they?
No, I mean, it just comes down to, I look at everything I do, like for example, so my primary goal, besides, running the day-to-day of the company, but the day-to-day of the company is based upon the video I produce. So the content I produce. I try to limit the amount of meetings I go to unless they're strategic for that, so if an ESPN calls, okay, I'll make time for ESPN, but I'm not going to go talk to a startup here in Nashville that wants to put video on a startup. That's a waste of my time. So you have to look at what your time equals. So for example, if I'm creating a product that is, again, not asking people for money, it's got to be worth their attention. So if I'm putting time into a video, that it has to be worth someone's attention or money. So any time you put into anything that you're doing that doesn't either lead to money or attention is not time worth spent. Meetings for the sake of meetings, because that's what your company is supposed to have meetings. Well, no, but that's where clear goals of what you want. I don't have to show Billy my schedule. He knows everything gets done, and it's been proven in the work we've gotten. You know what I mean? And when he watches a video, he never goes, this seems really slop. I never throw anything sloppily together, but he doesn't police it. You have to put your time and effort. So if you might, the audience will tell you if it's worth your time. If nobody's buying it, there's a reason. You know what I mean? If you have to, and that's where starting small and selling, okay, you're going to make this cream. You know what I mean? Then you go and find 10 people and have them try it and literally in front of you, let them break your heart. And that is the most humbling thing when you put something out and they go, and nobody listens to it or nobody watches it. Okay, especially now with data on YouTube, they literally show you when people tune out. That is humbling as fuck. You know what I mean? Like when somebody doesn't watch something. And you never know what's going to happen from it. So you have to kind of just try it and constantly evaluate what you're getting out of it. And what's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If it's not working, look and see what other people do, and look and do the opposite of what other people do. If you're a business coach that everybody, the point of entry is $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's free to talk to me. And because if you get people to buy in, they'll be happy to support you. So you just have to find what works for your genre and your business, and then you just go with it. And you have to make sure you're not going to drown yourself. When you pay $10,000 to a business coach, you better know that that's going to work for you. But if that's the vig to get in with them, you have to understand that what their business is. Their business is to sell $10,000. It's not to make you money.
But if they want a repeat client, okay, like going back to Gary Vee or the coach that I've worked with for 6 years, who's worth well over $100 million, I've stayed with my coach as an example for all these years because he makes it his mission for me to be not just successful, but like happy with what I'm doing. Not like you can make cash and be run ragged. I've had that life. But he makes it his mission. So therefore I want to pay him that. And he is high ticket. And I gladly give him my money for that.
Well, but that's the thing is you paid him once and you took a leap. You didn't know what you're going to get, right?
I had a pretty good idea because he offered so much for free, like you said.
But once you are disappointed by somebody, you're not going to pay it again. So like that's what I mean is you got to have a hell of a product or know that it's going to be worth somebody's time. So that's the hard part. When you want to start a business, you have to go, is there a need for it? There's plenty of books out there that tell you like, is your product good? But that's the thing is you can make 30 to 60 grand a year talking about toys if you figure out where the niche in the market is, and and figure out what's your number, and your number doesn't have to be what your number doesn't have to be what it is. Like I know what my number is in the house I'm in. If I wanted to downsize tomorrow, Billy and I agreed upon a number that's pre-revenue, but once there's revenue, I could make a lot more, but I don't think I'd change how I live because how much of your job is traveling? You know what I mean? So like, people buy these big expensive homes, but for what? To entertain? Okay, great. Go to a restaurant. That's why restaurants will always exist because I can entertain out. I don't have to pay the overhead for the nice decor. We can go meet somewhere and it may be $100, but it's better than a $6,000 mortgage.
So your solution, what I'm like gathering from talking to you is, as you're choking, thank you. Your solution to keeping that kind of money noise at bay is living well below your means and being very thoughtful about what you spend money on. Therefore, you don't have that money noise going in your head. Like when you're putting out content and when you're structuring your company, it's not all about money for you because you're not overspending.
Yeah. I mean, you have to decide like, okay, I have the fancy gym or do I have the Planet Fitness? There's a Planet Fitness is $9. The fancy gym is $150. You go, okay, what could that money do for me? You can make that decision, and it's your decision. It's your business, and that's why when a restaurant fails, how many restaurants have you been to where it fails? You know exactly why it failed. It failed because it was poorly run, not because the food wasn't good. A terrible restaurant or a good restaurant in a bad location can survive if people know to go there. Like me, my favorite brand that's run so well is In-N-Out Burger. Because it is on point with everything they do. It's exactly it's going to be the same. You walk into a McDonald's, it is like Russian roulette. You know what I mean? Like service is weird. It's just not consistent. So if your business is consistently run, it'll do well. But when it is poor decisions or poor management, it doesn't matter how good your product is. So that's what I mean is like if you run a very solid business as far as what you spend, what time you put in, and how it's managed, it will succeed based upon your level of talent. Then your talent shows through. But if you don't know how to run a business and you're out spending a bunch, if I was flying first class everywhere, look at the difference on because I'm a vice president, I should fly first class. It's in my contract. Okay, but the company's not making money. You fly first class when the business allows that. Billy can fly first class because the pumpkins do big business.
Right.
And he can make that decision. But he also drove cross country in an RV with me because the project was that was the budget. You know what I mean? And we stayed in Holiday Inn Expresses. We didn't stay at a 5-star resort, but when he's on tour, 5 stars. You know what I mean? Like, you have to understand, and that's where you have to approach it. And that's where the gap is. The gap is there if you want it. If you want to work for a company, if you want to work for Honda and and have a big expense account, cool. That's great. But you work for a big, like, I don't think I could work for Pizza Hut. I just don't think I could, because making food that makes people sick and doesn't help their lives would be hard for me to go to. And I know I work in wrestling, and you're like, but that people beat each other up and they get hurt, but I get what I want out of it. I also am not pushing a product that's like bad for you, I guess is the best way for me to say it.
So before we wrap up, there's so many people who are wanting to get into, the video content game, because we all know that, video is the most impactful on SEO. Video's the way. And they want to start a channel and they're not really sure like what they should put out there or how they should do it. I mean, this is something you've mastered. Do you have, any tips for people who are, beginners, not someone who's, advanced knowledge like yourself?
Sure. The cost of entry is, there's two things you need. You need to know how to tell a story, and you need to be able to take that story and put it into some form of content. So, for example, you can do a great audio piece of content, but if you're just two people having a conversation, that's great, but the conversation has to be good. Like, you just can't do video for the sake of doing video, because that's what you're supposed to do video. But there's never been cheaper to have a point of entry to make video. Everybody's phone now is way better than what we had, even in 2011. You know what I mean? Like this, like now you can go into Best Buy and buy a Canon SL2. I think it's like $400, $500. And the secret with Canon cameras is it's all about the lens. So like the body is important, but it's the lens that gets the look. So, but you could still buy a DSLR and get a microphone on top. You could start making content with your iPhone. It just has to be good and compelling and worth somebody's time. It's the equivalent of when you're on a plane and have a bad conversation with somebody. If they're going to tune you out, it's on you and the conversation you're putting out there. So if you want to learn, like Peter McKinnon on YouTube is really good. Obviously, Gary Vee is very good. Just search for what you want, and trust me, you'll see content going, oh, this is terrible. Like, I wanted to learn how to use the new camera we bought, and I found this guy that was dry and terrible, and I'm like, it took him 8 minutes to tell me something that like it did like stop like leading me on in this video. Subscribe to my channel. He went 4 minutes before he got to the content. Like, I ain't going to subscribe to this guy. You have to make something that you have to want to spend time with somebody. And again, ironic that I say it, because I know sometimes I drive people away, but I understand that somebody's time is more valuable, especially when it's so just like somebody could click on something, start watching it, and they could decide within 1/100th of a second they're done with you and never come back. You have to understand every second matters when you're making video or any form of content. And because people are a lot kinder in real life to their friends than they are to the content they watch. So.
Do you feel that it has to be even though if you're using, your iPhone or an inexpensive camera, do you feel that you have to edit it beautifully and use cool graphics in order to keep someone engaged?
Raw. That's where you get in the weeds with like, oh, this graphics guy is $5,000. I don't use motion graphics at all, because like that's more time and more money, and television, like you have to look and see who you're selling, and are you putting the graphics in to convince yourself or an audience? And the more authentic, like the rise of YouTube, where people talking on webcams to like themselves. There are people like Instagram models that are not famous that have 15 million followers because of their butts, because they knew how to take a picture of their butt, and that's it. There's no what life do we lead? And so like you just have to understand what people want from your content and create it, and don't worry so much. Speed is better than perfect. So now I try to make my content as good as possible, but it's more about the story has to be right than, oh, I don't have a really cool video effect to pop up here. Like, I know once I have the story, it rolls downhill fast. Everything else fixes. Like, I don't have my story for my video I'm cutting today, but I'm listening to quotes and then I'll sort of mash it together. Once I have the story, it's good. Don't waste people's time. Don't waste my time, Tiffany. I'll come after you.
I love that. That's perfect spot to end, and the thing is like we live in a time where it's like we need to get to the fucking point and get to it quick. We have very short attention spans, and you yourself have a short attention span. So why would you do some long drawn out video or long drawn out caption to get to the damn point that the person searched for you to land there anyway? That's irritating. Mm-hmm. Right?
But that's where people don't, that's where they let their ego get in the way. Well, I'm this person. I was the vice president of this company, so people should want to sit with me. No, they'll decide, especially if they're not in front of you. It's like the rise of dating. I mean, there was not Tinder 5-6 years ago. Like the fact that somebody makes a decision on you in 1/100th of a second, I think I'd be in a lot more therapy if that existed 10 years ago. Jesus. So that's what I mean is like, it's just, you have to understand the speed at which people live. And by the way, it is your advantage is to figure it out. Yes, it's terrible. And I wish phones didn't exist. Well, it ain't going anywhere. And by the way, the next level of consumers are growing up with it. So if you don't learn it now, you're going to be your grandfather talking about how great the radio was.
Yeah, you're going to be that person. Well, thank you so much for taking time and coming on. I loved catching up with you. And I hope this was helpful to you guys, because Dave just he lays it out like it is. And if you don't like it, he actually really kind of doesn't give a fuck, because the people who do value it like it.
Said, by the way. Yeah, I don't remember a thing I said. So if anything I said resonated or you hate me, just message me and I'll be happy to lie to you some more.
So we'll have all the info and show notes, but Dave, really quick, let them know, where they can message you and also your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's real easy. It's my last name, which people think is lasagna. I actually just got a text message with somebody saying that, oh, your name should be lasagna. Yeah, I haven't heard that since I was 5. It's Lagana on Instagram and Twitter. It's they're both verified because I'm super cool and awesome like that. Those are the best places to get me, either Instagram or Twitter. I have a Facebook, not really, that I use. And the YouTube for the content I'm making for Billy, it's youtube.com/NWA. Like the rap group, but it's not. We actually were around way before them. So that's where all that content is. And you can find me that way. And then, I opened my DMs 2 years ago, and it's actually been the best thing because people are actually a lot nicer in private than they are in public.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, thank you so much. It was so good having you on. And don't hang up, even though I'm going to stop here. And you guys, again, if you love this episode, you got something out of it, for sure, give us some love. Send Dave a message. Call him lasagna for me. Say something. You guys have a great day. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.